Hi, my name is Benedict. There's still so much discussion of loop hell, where you make 8 to 16 bars of loop of something or other and can't go past that. If you apply the stuff that I'm going to discuss, you will gain the mindset that allows you to move past that. Because obviously if you're in loop hell, you're just going round and round in circles rather than thinking forward. This forces you to think forward, therefore you will improve your ability to get out of loop hell. Now, the biggest problem that causes loop hell, if we totally ignore the fear element, is this sort of forgotten power of variations. When variations is raised, it's like, oh, but that's some of that evil theory stuff that ruins musicians. Bullshit. Bear in mind that some of the greatest musicians in the modern era had little to no training whatsoever. You don't need to have a lot of theory, but you do need to understand harmony. Harmony is about making things harmonious, and you can choose how pleasantly harmonious or unpleasantly harmonious you choose to make that. The thing is that variations are about moving forward. They're about saying, I've got this idea, how can I expand upon this idea? Loop hell is the complete opposite of saying, I have this idea, I'm just going to impact this idea, as in like I will hammer it further and further into the ground. My idea actually seems to become less and less as there's less of my stick visible above ground. I'm not going to play you the piece to start with, I'm going to show you how it progressed. For those of you who are going to say, but it's not my genre, genre is irrelevant in music, and largely it's a made-up thing. The fundamentals of how it works are exactly the same. Righto, this is where I started, and I didn't even intend to write a piece. I was playing with some ideas about sound design. This is where I started, and this is everything that comes after comes from this. So we got 4 bars of music, and it's pretty darn limited. And then sort of thought, well, okay, is there any music in this? So I did a Benedict thing, and I applied a lead line. So it's a melody, but it's almost more half a melody. Then I applied some strings, just to fill it out. Now the concept of harmony starts to become apparent, because obviously we have, where we look at our notes, they're not all playing the same notes. So in this situation we have a third, we have a fifth, so that's a power chord between these two, and a third, so 1, 3, 5. So in this point we're basically expressing a chord. We could call that a D chord because it seems to be rooted in D, but I don't care about the names of chords. Great musicians often don't care about the name of the chords. They don't know the names of inversions or what have you. Ooh, look here, we actually have a minor second. And doesn't sound out of tune. If it does, it's characterful. These are harmony. We've actually got a second happening here, and again, doesn't seem like it's problematic. So between this, we've got movement, and so that's counter melody. As such, we're creating harmonic movement rather than putting everything tracking lockstep. We're not going to get too much into that. I made a whole course which digs a lot more into details of this stuff, but again, in a very practical sense, we have to get rid of the idea of rules and if I have exactly this, then I'm right. You've got to feel your way into this. And then, just to please people, I put in some drums. So now we can get our disco on. This is where it would then be easy to get stuck in loop hell, to simply be repeating this over and over and over again. But I know that that's the worst thing that we can do. I probably wouldn't even normally build up this many layers. at once before I went and did anything else. I wouldn't even have drums in at this point. Because putting the drums in early tends to stop you from writing anything, actually musical. Drums are not musical per se. They are punctuation, they're timekeepers. Yes, you can be quite musical and amazing and go watch Bill Bruford play drums. Absolutely stunning and awesome. And I'm prepared to say that there is more musicality in that drumming. But seeing most of you are going to be doing just a 4 on the floor with a 909, there's no musicality per se in that, not compared to notes. So we should be able to turn off our drums, as we have here, and still say, I have a functioning piece of music. If your music doesn't function without drums, you probably don't have a very strong piece of music, because let me tell you, everyone else has a bigger 909 than you do. 909 envy, shocking. So now I have that loop in which most people would go, I can't do any more. And in trying to do more, they would layer more stuff here. Like have 57 different instruments and random sounds chugging away at once going, oh, well, then I can somehow stretch them out. But no, let's look at what I did. We'll turn this loop off. I added another part. Or at least it sounds like I created another part. What I did literally was I created a variation. Let's discuss variations. Variations, as an introduction, are essentially same but different. They vary. They're not new, otherwise they'd be called newinations, or a fresh idea, something random. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make, and then they can't glue the two together. It's not to say that a second idea isn't valuable in a piece, but if you don't know how to glue them together, you're in trouble. Variations is about saying, let's take my existing idea, cats are great, add a variation of that. Aren't cats wonderful? That's really a restatement of it, but cats are great, aren't cats wonderful? Actually works in a conversation. We're reinforcing our point about the wonderful greatness of cats. So what I've done here is I've just gone for a straight lazy cheat. I have taken same but different, but I haven't added any new material. It's really important. Most people never practice variations, largely because they think that practice is uncool, because they make the mistake of thinking that being forced to practice the piano or the violin or the plastic recorder as kids means that that's bad. But if we don't learn our craft, how are we ever going to learn our craft? It doesn't arrive in the email. It doesn't. So practice variations, which means that if we have got a phrase is same is a variation, because we've simply turned it upside down, or we can vary it what we've done is we've moved our to that, plus we've moved our we've varied our rhythm. So if we have a ta-ta-tee, we might go a ta-tee-ta, as in long, short, long, short. So we can vary lots of things. Why would we do this? We make more of less. We made a little go a very long way, to quote from Pet Shop Boys song, to misquote, but very relevant. We make more of less, which is familiarity. Pop music relies on repetition. But literally, we've become so inured now to pop music, which is literal repetition, as in we've got this loop. There's the thing from Deadmau5 for his masterclass where he's just like holding down a key and going, and he's right. That's not exciting in any way, shape or form. We're just repeating the same thing over and over again repetitively in a boring way. Most of you have probably left because you think that's what I'm doing here, but I'm trying to hammer home point and give you various ways of seeing that point, because I know that most people will want to, which they're probably the people who've left the video anyway, so maybe I shouldn't waste time with them. So making more of less is really important because we want familiarity. If we start a piece with idea A, move to idea Z, move to idea Q, it's confusion. And a lot of pieces do that because they don't know how to make them work. Most rock songs are made from a verse thing, which is recognizable, possibly a hook thing that's recognizable, very recognizable, reappears. The verse and the chorus are also very repeatable. But there are variations within those. So each time we hear a verse, it's probably not exactly the same. Whereas the mistake that's made these days in a lot of modern pop music is literally the same. And often they have this one loop that they play for 2 minutes until the rappers run out of gibberish. And they wonder why those songs don't fire very well. It's because they're boring. Really boring. Unless a rapper is really good and has an interesting story to tell, and let me tell you, most of them do not. They have exactly the same story to tell. Oh, woe is me, because my N-word female dog garden implement did party harder with somebody else. Who gives a flying banana peel? So we want to make more of less. We want to be able to take what we've got, our cool hook, our cool verse, our cool chorus, and find ways to reuse them recognizably so that people don't feel like it's a purple dishwasher monkey situation and go and leave. It also helps us to, as I started to say before, to join parts. So if we have idea A and idea B, let's say idea B is really more an idea Z, as in there's no apparent relationship between the two. Variation allows us to work out how to get from here to there. And that takes a little bit more time. You need to understand the basics of variation before you start to be able to get from here to there intelligently. A kind of cool, very obvious thing is the Funky Town song. But at the end of that section, this is what's called a turnaround, doom doop doom doop doom doop doom doop, and it starts again. It's because they've taken their idea to here, and to restart their idea, they need to go back here. Doom doop doom doop doom. So they walk back down. It's actually embarrassingly dumb if we're going to be high-minded about music, but how effective is that? So to make more of less, to push your ideas a lot further without becoming random, and also to be able to join parts up. Let's walk through some of these. We can swap instruments. So here's one way. Exactly the same idea, stated exactly the same way, but it sounds different because it's now got a different instrument. Here we do that. We take this and it sounds like we've got something that's kind of familiar but quite different. All I did was I take my brass line, give it to the bass, take my bass line, give it to the brass. The strings haven't changed, and nor have the tingly sound, but by swapping these two around, I've just made it sound different. Sneaky. And then we can do things like changing tone, which is essentially the same thing, but slightly different. So our brass sound here is big and bold. When we get to here, very recognizable, but it's been pulled back. It's a little bit more muted in several factors. So we can change instruments, either just introducing a new instrument, or as we see here, we can just swap them around, which is generally fairly easy in electronic music. Not always as easy, but if you're using real instruments and don't know how to transpose, say, a bass part to a saxophone, then probably you shouldn't be using real instruments. Or you should simply be saying to your sax player, okay, Mr. Saxophonist, you're going to pick up the bass line from here. So, I don't make a very good saxophone. They will know how to do that. But if you're doing this yourself inside your own DAW and you don't know how to do that, don't use those instruments. Use synthesizers, because they give you far more freedom. And if you go, but it won't sound right, then you need to get your head out of your, because you are creating a situation from which you cannot win. And that's creating a roadblock. That's why you're in hell, because you're creating roadblocks out of stupid technicalities which seem right and proper, but are a perfectly safe place to hole yourself up forever. So we can change tone, which is a lot like changing instruments, but we've got the same instruments. So I've taken swapping some instruments around again, and then changing the tone of some of the instruments. So we have no new notes whatsoever. So we've dragged our, 8 seconds out of music out to 24 seconds of music. And it feels like there's far more interest in here. That's just swapping instruments and changing tone. Now we can look at how we might bridge to a next part. Okay, well that sounds like exactly the same. It is, but listen to what happens. Did you notice it? It's here. Watch this. We'll pick from halfway. Now this is bridging or preparing for the next thing. This is not the very best explanation, but all you need to do is hear it and understand it. So if we listen to our string line alone, the next section is going to start up here when it's been playing down here. So it's been playing here, something like there. And then it has to go up here. It has to leap basically 2 octaves. So rather than just going, which is a bit inelegant, we found a way to bridge a few notes. And it prepares us for the next bit that comes along. This is bridging. So we've taken 2 things, because when this next bit comes in, rearranging all the instruments has given us a real change. It's literally this bit. But we've changed its register. So we've said, okay, I'm going to move this, and in this case 2 octaves. So it puts that string on top of things rather than inside things. So it changes the feel. And we have found a way to go, okay, I'm going to move from here to there, just with a few notes in an effective and safe run to lead us up. And so this section, even though it is literally this section, feels different. So we've created a feeling of like, ooh, out of doing nothing but using the same material, but creating a leading the listener from down here to up there. Without that, you find that, I'll just mute these guys. While it comes in and it's higher, it doesn't have anywhere near the excitement of... Because we hear that and go, oh, it's a bit new and different, and it's leading me somewhere. So this is bridging one part to another, leading people into the next. So this has got nothing other than this string lifted up, and we've also opened up the tone. You'll see how with the automation, because because that's playing higher, I need to allow the sound to be brighter. Otherwise, we wouldn't get that feeling of high, bright string. Because we've got this rising, I've had that rise as well. So we are working on our tone, our articulation. Then we restate. Just as we've done before, which is our repetition. And again, we're going to lead to what's coming up next. There's a very subtle preparation for what comes next. I've already shown you that as an idea. All you need to know is as an idea, and then actually do it. If you need someone to tell you what to do, then you've lost already. But there is a video, which I'll pop up again, which is all about variation. But if you try to go to variation before you've understood how an octave works, how a key and scale works, you're going to struggle with that. You'll probably use unwise notes. Notes that you go, this doesn't sound any good. Understanding your key and scale helps you to understand which notes are more likely to be useful. So we then move to, and a thing that's largely forgotten, an ending. Now, endings have largely ceased to exist in modern music, which is truly, truly sad. A lot of that is because of loop hell. They're releasing songs which are still essentially stuck in loop hell. And it might seem super uncool to have an ending, but hang on. You go and watch a movie and it has no ending. It simply ceases to exist. How good do you feel when you walk out the cinema? A lot of the reason that you feel good when you walk out the cinema is so that you feel great about going to see another movie, especially if it's got that guy's name on it. So sending people to the end of your song and then simply ceasing to exist, as in not giving them that moment of walking out the cinema with a, I feel amazing, I feel like anything's possible right now, means that people aren't going to want to play your song again because you didn't give them any kind of payoff for it. So things must have an ending. If you're working in loop hell, obviously you're not even trying to end your piece because it's going to go infinitely dull. So think moving forward with variations, and your variations need to have some kind of an ending. What that ending is going to vary entirely on your piece. If it's a death metal song, it probably isn't going to want to fade away like this. A death metal song fading away like this is probably going to sound limp, and not in a biscuity way. I slay myself. This, however, seeing I tend to write more laid-back music, has a subtle, gentle fade away. How did I do that? Well, actually, really, really simply. If we look at automation, you will find that I found something to fade away on each one. I faded off the level of the drums, so from here it's already going. So by the time we get to that point, barring the glitch, the drums are effectively gone. I kept it so that they're just there enough so that there's still a sense of them fading away in this section, even though they've largely faded away. I'm lowering the filter in the bass, so it just becomes... although it's not playing a bass sound then, but it just becomes softer, more muted with our... Again, filter for this. I didn't actually use that, so it shouldn't even be there. You'll see here that I made it ever so slightly more blatty. Simply because at that new section, even though it's a repetition, I want a sense of grabbing people again. It's the tiny details that make the difference, especially when you're recycling. And again, just a filter fade on our strings with our tinklies staying there. And then a master fade. I'm amazed how many people don't do a master fade on the end of their song. If you don't want your song to fade out, which is what this is, then give it a big finish. Oh, yeah. Done. And you will note that if you're following music, that we finish on the root note of the piece, because it feels done. If we're going, it feels wrong, because you've gone not finished. There are times where that might be clever. There are going to come up with examples of it, but as a general rule, you're going to want to finish on your root note. It's safe. So now we've taken this tiny bit of material. We'll go back to where we started. Which honestly has very little hope for it, in terms of hearing that and going, there's a cool song in here, and we've turned it into this. Again, no judgments based on your preconceived ideas. I'm not presenting this as a finished piece of music. I think it's rather limited. Swap instruments. Same exact material as you heard last time. Swap instruments, swap the tone of some of the instruments. Restating our main theme, and then bridging to the next bit. We've changed the pitching of an instrument and its tone. Restating. And then ganging a couple of instruments there to finish. And creating, in this case, a fade, and making sure that we finish our piece on our root note. The first note you hear is a C, and the last note that you hear is a C, and that's why it sounds finished at that point. With no new material, as in no new ideas whatsoever, we've taken this little loop and turned it into, it's a minute of music, but there's no reason that we couldn't double all of this, because I've done very little in the way of repetition, verse, chorus kind of stuff. Could do and turn it into 2 or 3 minutes very, very easily. I would prefer to add some sort of new idea, and then also some spaces to bridge between some of these ideas, which perhaps crash a little bit if it were attempting to be a real piece of music. So remember, the real secret, and there's no secret here at all other than the fact that people choose to forget, is variation. Take what we've got and make different versions of it. And through that, we can move forward. Rather than piling on top, like soon-to-be loser, we take what we've got. Once we've got, okay, I've got an idea here. Rather than piling on drums and extra bits and pieces, like honestly, I would have possibly taken just the bass and tingle and gone, okay, well, that's my intro, and then added this in part 2, the lead brass part, so that way I'm moving forward right from the beginning. I may come back later and go, yeah, I don't want that intro, kill that and go straight into the bit. But nonetheless, I'm moving forward right from the beginning. But as soon as I feel like I've got an idea, then I'm moving forward. Okay, what can I do with that idea? Otherwise, it just does become loop hell, because you just pile things up and it becomes a dead end, because all you're looking at making is a piece of music that's this long. Who wants that? So we've got our idea, and then I will vary out across here, possibly introduce another idea, which may be with the same instrument or maybe with a different instrument, and then work out how to move them all together in something that might resemble a verse-chorus structure. But again, all of that depends on what's your music about. If it's a song, then yes, you definitely are going to want some kind of verse-chorus structure as a general rule, because if there's no verse-chorus structure, where's the bit that people are going to sing once they've finished hearing your song, especially if it has a bad ending. It's the final countdown. There isn't one of those to make them want to do it. There isn't a, I want to hold your hand. I want to rock and roll all night and party every day, yay. There isn't one of those, because you haven't made any of that, and you can't expect people to want to follow on. You might go, my story is so incredibly interesting because the uniqueness of my N-word female dog gardening implement. Believe me, it's not unique, because every other N-word female dog gardening tool song is exactly the same as yours, and you have not created some kind of unique hook. Your delivery is probably exactly the same as every other drunk. So please be careful. Don't get stuck. Being stuck means you're afraid to branch out. Variation is about branching out and going, what can I find in here? And you're going to go, that's really interesting. Like, I honestly didn't expect that this was going to transition to this just by flipping a couple of the instrument parts around. I may have had to move them octaves to make them work, but nonetheless, dead easy, completely different feel. If you have questions or want to work more directly with me, contact me below. The real key to this is A, remembering that variations are the most important thing in creating any kind of music, whether you're doing classical, opera, death metal, or even trap. It's all about variation. All that electronic meddling is an attempt to create variation. Imagine if you didn't need to waste hours meddling and could simply go straight there. And the key to actually harnessing that power is practice. This is just practice. I do these things for practice. And then I thought, well, and in many ways, technically, I don't need practice, but it's out of practicing that you go, oh, there's a cool idea I'm going to work up into a piece, or I know why that failed. Or there's a cool thing, I'm not going to turn this into a piece, but it gets filed away for later. All right, get out there, make good music.